Coldwater, Pennsylvania was not on any traveler's map, yet people who arrived rarely left. Elena Carter felt that the town breathed, as if every street lamp and cracked window silently watched her step through the misty night. She moved into an old Victorian house built in 1892, its wallpaper tearing like skin and every floorboard whining in protest beneath her feet. She believed Coldwater's mystery would become her big journalism breakthrough, but the town had other plans for her. On her first night, she heard whispers leaking through the walls, like wind but heavier, wetter, alive. They formed words: "We are here, we are hungry." Elena froze, heart-pounding, believing it was neighbors or imagination. Morning came, but the voices remained carved into her memory. Trying to ask locals about it, she discovered their silence was absolute. No one answered her, not even with gestures. Only blank, terrified stares met her voice. Finally, an old man trembling with fear slipped her a note: "Speak about the voices and you die." He walked away as if she were already dead. That night, as Elena lay awake, the whispers returned stronger than before, chanting her name through the dark house, promising she would never leave. Coldwater resisted truth like a living organism. Elena spent hours researching and found a name that kept repeating in forgotten town records: Martha Hallow, a mute girl lost in 1985. Nobody would speak about her, yet the silence around her name was louder than shouting. Elena's curiosity drowned her fear, and she whispered Martha's name into her empty house at midnight. The air instantly thickened, as if sound itself had weight. The walls trembled violently, dust falling like ash. The whispers changed from gentle murmurs to agonizing screams, ripping through her mind. "Do not speak my name." Elena stumbled backwards, covering her ears, though the sound came from inside her head. A shadow leaned over her bed as she passed out. When she awoke before sunrise, something awful had happened. Her lips stung, her chin burned. Running to the bathroom mirror, she saw crescent-shaped bite marks around her mouth, deep enough to bleed. They were too wide to be human. Terrified, she asked a neighbor if anything strange had happened, but he backed away as if her voice were poison. "You said her name." He mouthed silently. No sound escaped him. That night Martha's voice returned, whispering darker promises. Unable to ignore the puzzle, Elena pushed further, discovering the abandoned Coldwater church sitting crooked beneath dying oak trees. At the edge of town, inside, dust-covered pews faced a pulpit split down the center, as if something heavy forced its way through. Every wall was scratched deeply with shaking handwriting, spelling the same phrase thousands of times: "Speak no evil." The words were carved so violently they dripped dried blood. In the confession booth, Elena gagged at the smell of rot. She pushed the curtain aside and screamed silently when she saw rows of glass jars lining the walls, each containing severed tongues floating in old cloudy liquid. A gentle voice suddenly appeared behind her. Father Samuel, a thin, pale priest with hopeless eyes. He whispered, "Words gave birth to demons. Silence keeps them asleep." His voice cracked like broken wood. Elena tried to question him, but he panicked, pressing a finger to her lips, shaking his head violently. Shadows gathered outside the church windows, faceless, silent, shaped like people but wrong heads bent, bodies twitching. They pressed against the glass without making a sound. When Elena blinked, the confession booth door slammed shut by itself, trapping her in darkness with the jars. Something breathed inches from her face. Elena escaped the church before daylight vanished, her hands shaking uncontrollably as she drove home. She broke into the town's restricted digital archives using stolen log in information from the mayor's office. Reading ancient documents, she discovered Coldwater was built over a native burial site. The tribe had desperately warned future generations that voices beneath the earth could cause madness, murder, and eventual extinction. Those who listened too long clawed their own mouths apart trying to silence themselves. Elena felt the air shift inside her house. The whispers returned, louder, more human, pressing at the walls. "Why speak?" They hissed. "Why wake us?" The lights flickered violently until they exploded, showering the floor with sparks. Elena crawled across the darkness and felt cold, dusty handprints closing around her neck, squeezing gently as if testing her breath. She tried to scream, but only a dry rasp escaped. The walls pulsed like lungs, pushing whispers forward. "Open your mouth." Elena ran outside, gasping. The sky above Coldwater looked bruised purple, swirling like storm clouds alive. She knew the curse was older and deeper than she had imagined. Something had been buried and silenced for centuries, and her voice was waking it. Elena spent the next day walking through Coldwater's streets, noticing details she had once ignored. Every resident had scars around their mouths, stitched lips, burn marks, surgical lines, taped wounds. Her blood chilled when she realized they all shared the same silent terror. At sunset, Elena was summoned to the town hall by Sheriff Collins. The entire population sat around her, staring with hollow eyes. None spoke. Sheriff Collins slid a paper across the table. "If one more word is spoken, the town dies." Elena's heart raced. Every instinct screamed to run, but the truth mattered more. She slowly stood, looking into their lifeless eyes. She whispered a single word, "Truth." The room erupted, not with sound, but with physical agony. People clutched their throats, mouths opening in silent screams. Blood poured from their ears like red waterfalls. Some collapsed. Others clenched their teeth so hard they cracked. Her word had triggered something ancient, something cruel. Outside, streetlights exploded one by one, sending sparks into the dark sky. Whispers howled through Coldwater, louder than ever. Elena knew the town blamed her now. They were afraid of her voice, but they needed her to stop what she had started. Coldwater Cemetery shook like an earthquake, gravestones splitting open as Elena ran toward the sound. The earth ripped apart, revealing a coffin pushed up from below. The lid shattered, and a figure rose from the dirt. Martha Hallow, the mute girl lost in 1985, stood before Elena, her skin ghastly white, eyes gone, mouth stitched shut with thick black thread. She pointed a shaking finger at Elena and stepped forward, every bone cracking noisily. Behind Martha, more graves burst open as spirits crawled upward tongueless, eyeless, hollow. Their feet never touched the ground. They hovered as if supported by whispers. One spirit dragged a stick through the dirt and wrote words in long, shaking strokes. "Give us your voice, or we take the world's." Elena trembled as her breath froze in her lungs. Coldwater had not been cursed by accident. The spirits fed on sound, on voices, on vibration. They needed Elena to speak. She backed away, feeling hands brushing her legs, though no bodies were visible. Martha raised her stitched mouth, threads tearing slightly, blood leaking through. Her head tilted unnaturally, staring at Elena without sight. Elena knew she had awakened a curse impossible to undo. Desperate, Elena ran to the tallest structure in town, the broken church tower. Inside, she found an old radio broadcasting room coated in dust and dead insects. A microphone sat on the desk beside a worn Bible, and a power switch hummed weakly. She realized the town once broadcasted sermons to keep the curse silent, using scripture instead of speech. But now she faced an impossible decision: speak to warn the world, risking global infection, or destroy her own voice forever. She turned on the microphone. Static roared. The spirits swarmed the tower, crawling up walls, slipping through cracks, whispering to her, "Speak, and we spread." Elena ignored them, holding the microphone with trembling fingers. She whispered her last report. "Coldwater is cursed, stop speaking." Her words traveled across radio waves, breaking every rule the town had lived by. The whispering spirits screamed silently. Elena grabbed a glass shard from the broken window and pressed it to her tongue. Tears streamed down her face as she cut deeply, slicing her own tongue out. Blood soaked the microphone, the spirits froze. Silence ripped through Coldwater like fire. Elena fell to the ground, unconscious but alive. Days passed before federal rescue teams entered Coldwater. They found thousands of silent citizens walking the streets like ghosts, mouths sewn shut not physically, but mentally. No one spoke another word again. Elena lay weak in a hospital bed, a bandage over her mouth, alive but voiceless forever. Reporters gathered outside Coldwater's border, calling it the Miracle Town, unaware of the horror buried beneath silence. Scientists studied the town's soil, confused by strange vibrations coming from underground. The townspeople refused to write or gesture, terrified that communication itself might awaken the curse again. Elena tried to warn doctors by writing notes, but no one believed a mute woman scarred by trauma. And then, late one night, a new resident moved into the edge of town. That same hour, faint whispers curled beneath every floorboard, every closet door, every pillow. They spread into the new family's home, brushing their ears gently. "We are not done." The words speak. No evil began appearing carved into their skin as they slept. Coldwater remained silent, but the evil beneath it waited patiently. The curse had paused, not ended, and the world outside had no idea that silence was the only thread holding back disaster.